End of the world, plus, cruel man, plus, Virgin Mary, plus, revenge, plus, gold finger for hoarding, Ning, who struggled for 3 years in the apocalypse before finally surviving, was betrayed by her boyfriend. Finally, he was eaten by the zombies and died without a whole body. A month before returning to the end of the world, Ning decided to let go of herself and let go of all tenderness and kindness. Tear off the fake stepmother with your hands, step on the scumbag man's white lotus with your feet, and retrieve your own golden finger. Start buying and hoarding, the days of hoarding. When the scumbag was starving and freezing in the rental house, Ning fed the steak to the dog on the other hand. Dogs deserve steak, but you don't deserve it. When Stepmother by Lianhua was tormented to death by the zombie disaster, Ning was masturbating her dog in a safe room. Take it slow, I like watching dogs bite. I just wanted to lie flat with space and abilities, but unexpectedly became a real boss in the apocalypse. Others. We are willing to follow you forever. Ning. She just wants to hoard goods and lie flat, while also slapping her face and harassing scumbags, not really wanting to be a savior. Group 540902422 Keywords of the novel. Apocalyptic disaster, the big shot wins by hoarding goods and lying down without pop-ups. Apocalyptic disaster, the big shot wins by hoarding goods and lying down. Download the complete text. Apocalyptic disaster, the big shot wins by hoarding goods and lying down. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Go to hell, Ning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Go to hell, Ning, you no longer have any useful value. You are a useless person without any abilities. I have earned you a lot of respect for being able to keep you alive until now. Go to hell. With the man's cold drink, Ning was pushed down. The intense sense of weightlessness almost suffocated her, and before she could react, countless zombies pounced on her and devoured her. Ah! Ning let out a scream and sat up from the sofa. Her cold sweat had soaked her clothes at some point, and her eyes were filled with despair and resentment. The pain of being torn by zombies still lingered, but everything in front of her shocked her. The retro wooden alarm clock and the textbooks placed on the table are clearly my home 3 years ago before the end of the world began. But isn't she dead? Without time to be shocked, Ning grabbed her hair with both hands and pulled her hard. Okay, you dead girl, why did you collapse without saying a word? So you're pretending to be dead with me here. I'm telling you. You must transfer this house to me today. The voice belongs to stepmother Shufen, spreading with open teeth and claws. Ning's eyes flashed with confusion. The intense pain came from her scalp, making her unable to resist frowning. The previously confused mind finally regained consciousness. It's not a dream. There wouldn't be such realistic pain in dreams. And what Shufen is doing now is exactly what happened once before the end of the world. Am I actually reborn? A burst of joy rose in her heart, and her previously bewildered eyes instantly turned cold. You little slut, how dare you stare at me like this? Watching Ning staring at her, Shufen felt a hint of anger in her heart. Just as she raised her hand to slap Ning grabbed her hand and slapped her hard. Pop. Deafening. Dressed in colorful clothes and with a delicate and ferocious face, Shufen suddenly froze. She let out a scream, touched her delicate face covered in cosmetics, and painfully opened the mirror. When she saw the bright red palm print on her face, she almost fainted. You little slut, how dare you hit me? Ning just smiled slightly. What is she afraid to fight for? Although she has died once, Shufen still remembers the things she once did. At that time, just as her father had passed away, her stepmother Shufen tore open her hypocritical face and forced her to transfer the house to her. She refused, so Shufen grabbed her hair and slapped her until she had to agree. Suning remembers that she was only 18 years old that year and had just been admitted to college. She experienced the impact of her father's death, which was the most vulnerable time. In those days and nights of abuse, she was like a frightened little beast, curled up begging for mercy, letting Jing Shufan let go of her in front of her deceased father. But Jing Shufan has no sympathy at all. Thinking of this, her gaze became even colder. She watched Jing Shufan rush over, wanting to teach herself a lesson like in the past. But after 3 years of honing in the apocalypse, Suning is certainly not the little pitiful person of the past. She easily dodged and then pressed Jing Shufan onto the sofa, arched left and right, slapping her one by one. Pop. Suning, you little slut, dare you hit me? You have a mother without a mother. Pop. Don't hit me, I'm your stepmother. Pop. Don't hit me, Suning. I beg you, if you really don't hit me, it's all my confusion. I shouldn't have hit you. At first, Jing Shufan continued to chatter incessantly, cursing the stepdaughter she looked down upon. However, as Suning fought harder and harder, her voice changed from initially arrogant to pleading for mercy, even unable to speak fluently. Help, help. Suning slapped her more than 20 times in one breath, until her palm felt a faint pain before finally retracting it with satisfaction. She has always wanted to do this. When she was bullied by Jing Shufan back then, she was only 18 years old and was still a gentle and weak student, without much strength to fight back. But now, struggling to survive in the apocalypse for 3 years, even at the age of 18, she was able to beat up women like Jing Shufan and beg for mercy. She elicited a gentle smile and patted Jing Shufan's swollen face. Stepmother, you should also know now that I'm not easy to bully. This house was left for me by my dad, and that's mine. Do you understand? I understand. Jing Shufan's entire face was swollen and high, and her previously proud eyes were now filled with fear and obedience. Her heart was filled with hatred to the death. But she didn't dare to say anything more. After all, Su Ning gave her more than 20 years scrapes hard just now, making her eyes turn black. How dare she speak up? The gentle smile on Suning's face suddenly faded away, and her eyes were indifferent. I understand, then get lost. Yes, yes. Jing Shufan hurriedly left, even tripping over the threshold and falling to the door, rolling out like a ball. Her screams were incessant in her ears. Looking at all of this, Suning did not gloat and instead calmly closed the door. Jing Shufan is a hypocritical person. On the surface, she is a kind and gentle stepmother, but in reality, she has been instigating her relationship with her biological father, both openly and secretly, forcing her to break with him. Later, she locked Su Ning in a room, refused to eat or drink, and abused him day and night for the property left by his father, just to sign a certificate of inheritance transfer for her. In the end, Suning had to compromise for his studies and freedom. After signing the transfer agreement, he could no longer take back his own house because the end of the world has begun. These memories dissipated like the wind, leaving only one inner question. Will the apocalypse still come? Suning murmured to herself and then opened today's news. On the TV screen, the dignified host recited the weather warning for the past few days with a sweet and standard smile. Super Typhoon Silly X will land in coastal areas in the early morning of the 13th, with wind force estimated to be 17.21, and will continue to rain for several days. Please do not go out at will. Are you still coming? A wave of fatigue rose in Suning's heart. The typhoon in the future is the beginning of the apocalypse. Then there will be huge typhoons, tsunamis, rainstorm, earthquakes, huge changes in temperature. These disasters step by step promote the outbreak of the end times. After the outbreak of the apocalypse, plants withered and animals became infected. After being consumed by humans, infected animals erupted into viruses and became zombies. Most people either turn into zombies or become displaced. Only a very small number of people, given the opportunity, awaken from their abilities, and were fortunate enough to become psychics who could control their own destiny. Ning, there was originally a chance to become a superpower. But in her previous life, she was just an ordinary person until her death. When the zombie rushed over, she had no fighting power. And all of this is just because Chen Kaizhi. As she pronounced the name with deep hatred, a murderous intent from Sen Han appeared in her eyes. She quickly took out her phone and found Chen Kaizhi's contact information in the address book. Despite suppressing her disgust, she dialed the number. "Hello. Ning, do you have anything to do?" The familiar voice made Ning's eyes increasingly cold. The memory before death is replayed once again, as a scene of a hypocritical man embracing a pitiful girl and pushing her into a pile of zombies. He said, "Go to hell, Ning. Open the article, please support us." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. 1 month before the end of the world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. 1 month before the end of the world. The background on the phone was extremely noisy, as if many people were celebrating, while Chen Kaizhi's voice was extremely low, with a hint of impatience. "Ning, what's up? Let's talk about it later. I'm busy right now." "Are you busy being intimate with your white university flower?" Ning smiled slightly and interrupted him with a cold gaze. She didn't care about Chen Kaizhi's shock after hearing this sentence, just said coldly, "Give me back my necklace." In her previous life, she was ambushed by a group of zombies while on a mission with Chen Kaizhi and Bai Jiaojiao. In the end, only the 3 of them survived. At that time, Chen Kaizhi had already awakened his superpowers and became a thunder-type superpower. And Bai Jiaojiao awakened a rare spatial ability. So without hesitation, Chen Kaizhi chose Bai Jiaojiao and pushed her out as food for the zombies, striving for a glimmer of vitality. Chen Kaizhi slowly regained consciousness from the shock, and after hearing Ning's words clearly, his still handsome face looked unsightly. "Are you crazy? You gave me that necklace yourself, but now you want to go back. What? You just want to be a fisherwoman like that?" Ning laughed angrily at Chen Kaizhi's words. Lao knew. When was a meal or party with Chen Kaizhi that she didn't pay for? Even if Chen Kaizhi wants something, she has to send it over as a part-time worker. And he has never given anything, even busy being the licking dog of the school flower. So, does he still have the face to say he's a fisherman? She didn't want to talk too much to such people, just said coldly, "Do you think I don't know that you gave everything I gave you to Bai Jiaojiao? I don't want to expose your face, don't play tricks on me either. As long as you return the necklace to me, I can give you 10,000 yuan. From now on, let's cut it off in one fell swoop. Otherwise, don't blame me for exposing your affairs. You don't want to be poked in the spine, do you?" 3 days ago, she had already given the necklace left by her mother to Chen Kaizhi. At that time, she was still deeply in love with this man, thinking of using the relics her mother gave her as a gift to express her feelings. Now she wants to wait for a moment. 10,000 yuan doesn't really matter, what's important is that she must bring back the necklace, which contains very important things. Chen Kaizhi was originally extremely angry. Because he had already given the necklace to Bai Jiaojiao, if he wants it back now, what kind of person has he become in the eyes of those he secretly admires? However, after hearing that 10,000 yuan, his gaze flickered and he immediately agreed. "Okay, that's what you said. We'll pay and deliver tomorrow." Although he was also reluctant to lose a spare tire like Ning, who was willing to spend money on it, Ning has become increasingly stingy these days and is already struggling. The things sent over are becoming increasingly worthless. Since he has already torn his face, he doesn't mind taking another 10,000 yuan from Ning's hand, which is much more valuable than the so-called tattered necklace. Ning sneered and didn't want to hear his voice anymore, so she hung up the phone and lowered her eyes to look at her pale and slender fingers. Bai Jiaojiao, she was actually unable to awaken her powers. The reason why she possesses spatial abilities is not because of her own strength, but because of the necklace that Su Ning gave to Chen Kaizhi. In her previous life, if it weren't for secretly listening to their conversation, she would never have thought that the love token she gave Chen Kaizhi was actually given to his goddess, the school flower of Peking University, by Jiao, by him as a flower offering Buddha. And by Jiao also gained spatial abilities through that necklace. She really wants to fan her past love brain to death. It's okay. There is still time to salvage it. She searched for her phone again and dialed them one by one. Hello, is this a real estate agent? I have a house here with a market price of around 5 million, and I only need 4 million now. Counselor, I have been feeling unwell lately and would like to take a leave. Could you please approve it? Then, she withdrew all her current savings at home, as well as the pocket money she had saved from working part-time during her 2 years of frugality in college. Although her family is still good, her relationship with her father is not good. After college, she never actively contacted him again, and all of it was her own work-study savings for tuition. Fortunately, although her father was ungrateful, he still left her a house worth 5 million yuan and 2,000 to 3,000 yuan in savings. This is also the reason why stepmother is so crazy. It's not that bad, but Su Ning's face turned black when she calculated. She used to work part-time and save about 20,000 yuan, but all of this money was spent on Chen Kaizhi. Not only did she give away the necklace that her mother had left for her, but she even bought a pair of AJ shoes for Chen Kaizhi a few days ago, bleeding profusely. Damn it! How could she have been so romantic in the past? Su Ning looked at the pair of AJs on the table, and the more she thought, the angrier she became. In an instant, her rationality dissipated, and she picked up these AJs and walked towards the trash can downstairs. A big yellow dog walked over. This dog has a strong physique and a ferocious spirit, but it is a bit cheap and yells at Su Ning. Woo! Faced with its provocation, Su Ning was not angry. Instead, he curled his lips and happily threw the AJ in his hand to it. That's great. I'll announce, these shoes are perfect for you to wear. This pair of AJs is suitable for dogs, but Chen Kaizhi is not suitable. After throwing away the shoes, the depression in Su Ning's heart finally slowly dissipated. The real estate agent quickly replied that a family wanted to purchase this apartment from Su Ning and asked when they could transfer ownership. Let's do it today. Su Ning smiled slightly, lowered her eyes, and looked at the clear time on her phone screen, on July 11th, at 12:21 a.m. There are 27 days left until the end of the world. I'm going to school, and there's no one else at home. It's useless to keep this house. I want to complete the transfer today. The end of the world is coming soon, and she must stock up on all the food and supplies that can keep her alive within these 27 days. Money it is currently her most important thing. Of course, the most important thing is that with Zheng Shufan's personality, if today's coercion and inducement were not successful, she would not give up easily. She was too lazy to argue with such people. In her previous life, Zheng Shufan was one of the earliest people to die in the mouth of zombies, so she didn't need to worry. The top priority is to get the money and get supplies. So, when Zheng Shufan finally got entangled with a large number of relatives and came knocking on her door with a fierce aura, wanting to teach Su Ning, this disobedient little slut, a lesson. I only saw a raw face. What, Su Ning sold the house? I don't care, I'm her stepmother. I also have my share in this house. Get out of my house quickly. Zheng Shufan is persistent and persistent. She married Su Ning's father for the house and savings he had in his hands. As a result, this old man spent all his savings on extravagance and alcohol, and the final property was left for his daughter. How could she accept it, who had consumed her youth? Faced with her throwing and rolling, the host only smiled slightly and slowly opened the door. Zheng Shufan and her relatives only saw more than 10 burly and fierce men sitting in the living room filled with delicious food. At this moment, they all stood up one by one. Compared to them, the relatives brought by Jing Shufan were each shorter and thinner, standing in front of them like several small potatoes. Powerful oppression struck in an instant. Well, I'm sorry, we went to the wrong place. Don't come over, you guys don't come over. Ah, help. Screaming, twisting, and crawling in darkness. Even if it turns out like this, I still have to exert all my strength and roar. I need a monthly pass. I want to recommend tickets. Please don't pity me just because I am a delicate flower. Smash your monthly pass recommendations and gifts hard. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Bitch paper pairs with dog, forever and forever. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Bitch paper pairs with dog, forever and forever. When Jing Shufan was taken into the hospital by the new owner of the house, Suning had already embarked on the journey to a city. Outside the window, there are endless green mountains and blue sky. She looked at the beautiful scenery and felt solemn and tired in her heart. It's hard to imagine that in a month, the end of the world will come, and such a blue sky and green water will turn into a pile of ruins, with no vegetation on the ground and animals disappearing one by one. Suning couldn't change such a tragedy. The only thing she can do is to survive this huge disaster. Getting the necklace back is her first step. She took a taxi to the school gate and directly called Chen Kaizhi. I'm at the school gate, you bring the necklace over. In just 10 minutes, Chen Kaizhi, dressed in casual attire, appeared in front of him with a humanoid appearance. Although she hadn't seen each other for only 2 days, even at the moment of death, she was still staring at the man's face and his affectionate eyes. Now, when we meet again, it feels like 2 centuries have passed. But her hatred towards Chen Kaizhi is only a little more. Where's the necklace? Suning didn't want to talk nonsense to his enemies and just got straight to the point. Chen Kaizhi's originally perfect smile stiffened slightly. He looked at the young girl in front of him, cold as ice and full of disgust towards him, and for some reason, a wave of anger rose in his heart. Why, are you in such a hurry and can't cut ties with me? Suning, I know you like to get angry, but you can't keep getting angry, otherwise even if you beg me in the future, I won't turn back. Begging him. Chen Kaizhi's words made Ning couldn't help but curl her lips, creating a mocking curve. She looked at the man who still considered himself charming and had strong doubts about her past vision. How blind was she in the past to fall in love with such people? However, she also has no intention of breaking ties with Chen Kaizhi, as she has not yet received the necklace. So. Suning took a deep breath and suppressed the surging murderous and hateful emotions in her heart. I don't want to talk about this now. We can talk about the breakup later, but I want to get that necklace back. I promise to give you 10,000 yuan and I will give you a lot of it. Her softened attitude turned into obedience and compromise in Chen Kaizhi's eyes. He let out a soft snort. There is both the self-satisfaction of guessing correctly and the impatience towards Su Ning's entanglement in my heart. He took out the necklace and placed it on the table in the coffee shop. Su Ning took a deep breath. She instinctively picked up the necklace, afraid that Chen Kaizhi would regret it. As Chen Kaizhi watched her movements, a hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. Oh, it's just a worthless necklace. Even if you take it back, it doesn't seem valuable to your sincere feelings towards me. Suning ignored him. She carefully looked at the necklace and confirmed that it was the one her mother had left for her. In that moment, she clenched her necklace, feeling a strong sense of regained excitement, like surging seawater, almost crushing her entire being. It's her. This should have been a legacy left by her biological mother, a path given to her by her closest relatives. But in her previous life, she gave it to someone else, which led to her tragic death. Fortunately, everything is in time. She stopped the tears in her eyes and calmly transferred 10,000 yuan to Chen Kaizhi. Looking at the transfer of 10,000 yuan on his phone, Chen Kaizhi's eyes lit up. He thought Suning was just joking around, but didn't expect the other party to be so generous. He checked online and confirmed that it was just a cheap necklace, so he was willing to get it back from Bai Jiaojiao in order to stabilize Su Ning as a spare tire. Seeing so much money, his attitude towards Su Ning is no longer as cold as before. The voice gradually softened. Su Ning, you don't need to be so polite about our relationship. However, didn't you say before that you ran out of money and needed to work part-time? Why did you suddenly have so much money? Is there something hiding from me? I'm not asking about your job, it's just that I've been interested in a pair of AJs lately. He talks endlessly, wanting to extract some more money from Su Ning's hands. He has already figured it out. Since Su Ning can spend so much money all at once, there must be more, and she can completely afford the expenses of herself and the goddess Bai Jiaojiao. When he takes down Bai Jiaojiao, he will kick Su Ning again, he thought a lot. However, in his memory, Su Ning, who had always sought and responded to him, stood up with a sneer. Our relationship. We no longer have a relationship. She looked at Chen Kaizhi with widened eyes in front of her, and her resentment and killing intent surfaced at the top of her heart. Previously, the necklace was in Chen Kaiji's hands, and she was only willing to give up. Now that the necklace has been taken back, does she still need to endure this scumbag? If it weren't for the fact that the end of the world has not yet begun, it would still be a rule of law society. She already did it. By the way, I forgot to tell you that I have already bought the pair of AJs you wanted, but I gave it to the big yellow dog downstairs because I think it's better to wear it for the dog than for you. She curled her lips and said the sentence she had wanted to say in both her past and present lives. Chen Kaizhi, I sincerely wish you and Bai Jiaojiao the longevity of pairing paper with dogs. End of this chapter. In chapter 4, she finally regained the golden finger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In chapter 4, she finally regained the golden finger. Bang, Chen Kaizhi only felt his entire brain explode. He stared at Su Ning, unable to imagine that the girl who had always been obedient to him could now insult him with such insulting words. Su Ning, what do you mean? You. He wants to say that he and Bai Jiaojiao are innocent, it's completely because she's making trouble without reason. However, Su Ning ignored him. She clenched her necklace tightly in her hand and disappeared at the entrance of the coffee shop. It wasn't until she arrived at the temporary resting hotel and closed the door that she finally let go and looked down at the purple necklace in her hand. This is an extremely simple necklace, with a black rope tied to a purple crystal, which looks no different from the one on the street stall. However, this is the only thing left for her by her mother. Mom. In the open room, Su Ning finally took off her guard and cried uncontrollably. She also had a beautiful family until her mother passed away at the age of 10, and her father went from being decadent to indulging in extravagance and drinking later on. Her memory of her mother is dwindling, leaving only the necklace hanging around her neck. She regarded this necklace as her most precious thing. In her sophomore year, she fell in love with Chen Kaizhi and gave him this necklace as a token of love. Chen Kaizhi. Now whenever she thinks of that man, Su Ning's heart is filled with waves of anger. Hating both her own foolishness and her despicability, all past experiences remind her of an incredibly important thing: I absolutely cannot repeat the same mistakes. She murmured to herself and slowly wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. Easy going, she pricked her finger with a needle and dripped blood onto the necklace. The originally dim purple crystal magically flashed a glimmer of light, and then the blood dripping on the crystal was slowly absorbed by it. Did you succeed? Su Ning is a bit nervous. In her previous life, this necklace was in Bai Jiaojiao's hands, and she didn't know how Bai Jiaojiao used it. However, when she held the necklace in her hand, the first thought that came to her mind was that she could make the necklace its owner through a drop of blood. She held the necklace in her hand and flipped it over and over. Although there is a response, it should be useful, but how should I use it? The words have not yet finished. She suddenly felt a pang of pain in her mind. as if something was being dug in and out. However, after the pain, it was clear and soothing, and a blank, empty place gradually appeared before her eyes. This place is about the size of 2 rooms, with a light purple light floating in the center, faintly visible in the shape of a necklace. Is this space? Suning's heart was filled with mixed emotions. She clenched her hand and said, "Once I was blinded by emotions, but I made someone else a wedding dress for such a good thing. If my mother finds out, she must be very sad. Fortunately, I have already taken you back now." She stroked the light purple light, knowing that it was the vitality her mother had left for her. "In the future, I will never let anyone take you away again." Her heart raced. Now that the space is available, what is needed next is to prepare the supplies. She must go out as soon as possible to search for supplies. The moment this idea rose, she felt the white space disappear before her, and she was still in the hotel she had just rented. Is this space actually used according to her thoughts and ideas? Suning pondered for a moment. She wore a necklace around her neck and covered it tightly with clothing. He took out his phone again and looked at the more than 10 missed calls belonging to Chen Kaizhi on it. A hint of sarcasm flashed in his eyes, and he quickly blacklisted them. From now on, Chen Kaizhi has nothing to do with her. She never thought about whether to retaliate and let this man experience a more tragic ending than she did when she was reborn. But she sneered. "With my necklace, you and Bai Jiaojiao lived safely until 3 years later. Without a necklace, you would never have become a superpower, and Bai Jiaojiao would not have any space. You, who have nothing, even if you survive to the end, are just 2 ordinary people. I'm waiting to see your good ending." Yes. How could 2 ordinary people survive in a perilous place like the apocalypse? Either they are devoured by savage and inhumane zombies, or they live forever at the bottom, uncertain. She doesn't need to spend her time on 2 doomed garbage, just let them rot quietly. Compared to dealing with them, Suning has more important things to do. That is, the apocalypse is only over 20 days away, and I must hoard what I need as soon as possible in order to survive in the apocalypse. In her previous life, Suning lived in immense pain in the apocalypse. She lost her golden finger necklace and became an ordinary person, struggling on the brink of death every day, and even being looked down upon by people like Chen Kaizhi and Bai Jiaojiao. Live a lifetime, she must never bow down and live. With such urgency in mind, Suning began to hoard in large quantities. She stood in the supermarket, looking at a dazzling array of goods with a list in her hand. Water, food, alcohol. In the apocalypse, the first important thing is the water source, followed by food that can be preserved for a long time, and some essential self-defense items such as knives. In the apocalypse, we need to face not only hunger, but also countless zombies. These zombies are actually ordinary people infected with viruses. After consuming contaminated food, they are assimilated into irrational zombies. On the first day of the apocalypse, Suning almost died at the hands of a zombie. Suning focuses on selecting materials. A constant stream of people brushed past her. A young and handsome man brushed past her, and in the moment of confusion, he suddenly stopped and exclaimed in surprise. There are no recommended monthly tickets, and the author is already exhausted, and the keyboard in his hand is no longer fragrant. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Predators. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Predators. Suning carried large and small bags of things and walked to an empty corner. With a gentle movement of thought, those things were incorporated into the necklace. With you, I can easily put things away anytime and anywhere in the future. She caressed her necklace with a bright smile on her face. She hasn't laughed for many years. Starting from the end of the world, people she knew around her died one by one. From knowing about the affair between Chen Kaizhi and Bai Jiaojiao, and knowing that she was like a fool being played with by them, she never smiled sincerely again. She fell into an endless gloom. Until all of this starts over again, she pinched the necklace in her hand, knowing that everything was different. With the necklace, she didn't need to live a life of fear like in her previous life, let alone worry about food and clothing. However, the most important thing is, in this life, I finally haven't made a wedding dress for someone I dislike. This is what troubles Su Ning the most. After all, this necklace was originally left to her by her mother. She just gave it away when she met someone bad, but the person who received the necklace not only benefited, but also colluded with Chen Kaizhi, that dog man, and gave her such a big green hat. Su Ning's heart fluctuated violently. She put away the necklace and told herself not to get angry before slowly walking out. But accidentally bumped into someone. Sorry. She apologized awkwardly and wanted to avoid the other person to continue walking. The man in front of him reached out his hand and stopped Su Ning with a smile. I should be the one who apologized. I just bumped into you. So can I treat you to a drink and express my apologies? He said, his surprised gaze falling on Su Ning's face. She is a gentle and indifferent girl. She has shoulder-length hair, dressed in a simple and neat outfit, and a long dress in floral colors, resembling that of a student. However, her eyes were full of sharp indifference, devoid of any emotion. Thank you, no need. Su Ning glanced at the handsome man in front of her, frowned, turned around and left. After experiencing Chen Kaizhi's incident, she now sees a slightly good-looking man, and her whole body sounds like an alarm. Men are a curse. This formula is firmly ingrained in Su Ning's mind. After a brief moment of surprise, the other party was taken aback by her turn and departure. Wait a minute. He stopped Su Ning with a slightly urgent tone. Don't you feel anything special when you see me? Feeling. Does it count as wanting to beat you down? Su Ning sneered and ignored him, walking away directly. But even when walking far away, the feeling of being followed is still like a shadow. Her footsteps stopped, her face cold and ugly. Can you stop following me? She had seen this kind of conversation before, but no one had ever been so persistent. I've been with her for over 10 minutes already. Su Ning looked back with displeasure at being followed, but did not see the man who approached lightly. Only a middle-aged man wearing a hat smiled and took off his hat. Little beauty, you're quite sharp. The originally flowing crowd has now disappeared completely. The wide street turned into a vast expanse of white, with only her and the man in the narrow space. She couldn't help but retreat, and a cold sweat oozed from her back. Who are you? This eerie scene made her feel extremely uneasy, as if the end of the world had already arrived. But there were still more than 20 days left in the end. Stop pretending, little sister. Are you a superpower, and it's also a rare spatial superpower? The other party's face showed a hint of pride and greed, approaching Su Ning step by step. At first, I couldn't be sure. When I saw you carrying so many things and coming out empty-handed, I was certain. I didn't expect to be so lucky to have encountered another spatial superpower. Also, what is it called again? Does it mean that this person had encountered other spatial powers before her? Su Ning suddenly remembered something and looked around at the invisible white barrier. An idea suddenly arose. So, this is your space. A man's appearance is an extremely ordinary public face, and he will not be noticed even when thrown in the crowd. No one will notice that he is a superpower. He raised an eyebrow. It's quite clever. Su Ning slowly exhaled and understood her current situation. A knife appeared in the hand behind me. She just bought it in the market. Since you have discovered it, I won't cover it up either. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to do research? Or do you want me to work for you, or something else? In the last 3 years of the world, she has seen so many such things. Among the supernatural beings, there are also battles, wars, and life and death. The weak rely on the strong, and the strong recruit the weak. Various organizations and bases have formed a separatist regime. The unlucky thing is that she was targeted by a certain organization. Suning thought coldly. However, the other party burst into laughter, speaking arrogantly and disdainfully. What are you thinking? Of course I want your powers. Conquer. What fantasy are you thinking? As long as you plunder your abilities, I won't be the strongest in the world, will I? He laughed wildly and rushed forward, trying to grab Suning's neck. Suning's face changed. The originally calm heart gradually stirred up towering waves. Is there anyone in this world who can plunder the powers of other beings? She didn't have time to think. Her body reacted quickly, and she dodged the opponent's attack. The knife in her hand fiercely struck the man's neck. Hiss. A large wound was cut on the man's neck, and countless amounts of blood flowed out. Suning, after all, is no longer an ordinary girl. She lived a full 3 years in the apocalypse as an ordinary person. Her appearance is still young and delicate like a 20-year-old girl, but her heart is colder than most people, and she will definitely not procrastinate. But just as she was about to continue her actions, the originally calm space suddenly twisted, and a powerful force pressed against Suning, causing her originally straight figure to collapse with a loud bang. Humph, in my space, do you still want to hurt me? I am the master of this space. Don't let me keep you pinned down and unable to move, even if I want you to fly, it's just a thought. The man covered his bleeding neck and his face gradually turned grim. A little girl, how dare I suffer so much? His big hand suddenly withdrew and grabbed Suning's neck, his expression twisted and he laughed heartily. Go to hell. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Escape from Death and Reverse Plunder. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Escape from Death and Reverse Plunder. Are you really going to die? As her eyes gradually blurred, a hint of unwillingness flashed uncontrollably in Su Ning's heart. In her previous life, she died in such a ridiculous way, and after finally reviving her life, could she still not avoid the fate of death? Ha ha ha, you're dead, and your abilities are mine. A useless person like you doesn't deserve to have abilities, I'm the strongest. The man laughed heartily. Just as Suning was about to be choked to death by him, the necklace around her neck suddenly emitted a fierce glare. The strong white-purple light makes men unconsciously squint their eyes. What? Ah! My head, my hands, what are you doing? He suddenly screamed, eager to shake off Suning. But his hand felt as if it was sticking to Suning's neck, he couldn't take it off no matter how hard he was. He could only feel in terror that the powers in his body were gradually disappearing and pouring into Suning's body. Suning only felt a strange wave, following the man's hand and slowly entering her body. Her body, which was originally immobile, was able to move easily and freely at once. No, my powers, you actually sucked them away. What the hell are you? Stop it now, or I'll kill you. It hurts so much. After losing his proud ability, the man finally couldn't maintain his composure, and fear and panic appeared on his face. The excruciating pain made him scream out loud. Finally, he fainted. Cough. Suning shook his hand off his neck, his pale face slightly bleeding back. The enclosed space finally shattered, and the white mist gradually dissipated. So, Su Xiaoxiao, who was lying on the ground with a pinch mark on her neck, and the man who was unconscious on the ground appeared in the eyes of passers-by. Following closely, there was the big machete on the ground. Digging trenches. Murder case. Ah! Is there a dead person? On the street side, suddenly appeared a girl with pinch marks on her neck, covered in wounds, and beside her lay an unconscious man. The people present immediately screamed and gathered around. Someone started reporting to the police, while others cautiously approached Suning to ask for warmth and comfort. The end of the world has not yet happened, and there has not been a huge moral and human impact. In this peaceful and beautiful rule of law society, most people are full of enthusiasm. After a brief moment of confusion, Suning quickly entered a state of mind. Like a simple student, her body trembled violently, fear appeared in her eyes, and her voice trembled as if she had been greatly stimulated. I went home shopping today and walked well, but someone rushed up. He grabbed my neck, trying to strangle me to death. If I hadn't bought a knife to cook, I might have died. So it looks like this. The passers-by suddenly realized that they looked at Su Ning, who was young, beautiful, gentle, and timid, with a hint of hatred flashing in their eyes. These scumbags like to pick on girls who are left alone. Don't be afraid, the police are coming soon. Su Ning cannot face the police, otherwise what just happened might have been discovered. She gave a forced smile and managed to leave the scene until she reached a deserted corner, her heart slowly calming down. A pair of eyes gradually became indifferent. There are still 26 days left in the apocalypse. Has a superpower appeared so soon? But that's not what's scary. What is terrifying is that there is actually a type of superpower that can plunder the abilities of others and become one's own. Su Ning thought to herself that the several spatial powers before her had already been killed. She must be even more careful in the coming time and never expose anything with her abilities. Thinking of this, she lowered her head, covered her face with messy long hair, and hurriedly returned to the rented house. But she didn't notice that a sharp gaze was always following her like a shadow. Indeed, he is a superpower. Su Ning quickly returned home and took out the necklace from her neck in the room. Did you save me? She struggled in the apocalypse for 3 years in her previous life. She narrowly escaped death many times, but not once did such a miracle happen to her. That man said he absorbed his powers mo fei. Is it because of the necklace? With such doubts in mind, she tried to use her mind to enter space. Being easygoing, she found that the space, which was originally only the size of 2 rooms, had now doubled in size, and a white mist had appeared around her. Looking at the mist, her eyes flashed with clarity. It turns out that after plundering that person's abilities, it was possible to increase the space in the necklace. So, did I actually benefit from misfortune? Su Ning was overjoyed. She poked the white-purple light in the space, her eyes shining brightly. I didn't expect you to be so amazing. Fortunately, I took you back from Bai Jiaojiao's hand, otherwise I would definitely regret it to death. Space powers, combined with plunder. With these 2 abilities, what will she fear in the future? She happily rubbed the dough, checked the materials she had accumulated today, and then walked out of the space with satisfaction, humming a song and preparing to take a shower. Just as she took off her clothes, she squinted her eyes. Slowly pull up the clothes that have been taken off. A pair of sharp and indifferent eyes suddenly looked out of the bathroom window. The man across the window was suddenly startled and almost fell to the ground. But Su Ning looked at the open window and slowly relaxed. So it's the window that's not closed. No wonder she had a feeling that something was wrong just now, it turned out to be because of this. Although each building was far away and the windows were only half open, she still closed them and couldn't see anything. Murmuring to oneself. It seems that my sensitivity has improved a lot after the daytime events. After speaking, she no longer doubted. I turned on the shower. And someone across from him also breathed a sigh of relief and stopped his peeping motion. It's so close. I almost thought I was discovered. End of this chapter. Chapter 7, It seems that you have no use for value. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, It seems that you have no use for value. After yesterday's incident, Su Ning's actions were more careful than before. She even changed her residence and started hoarding supplies on the other end. This day, Su Ning took a bottle of iodine from the supermarket shelf and couldn't help but frown. Looking in a certain direction, it was empty. Her face was unpredictable. Since taking a shower last night, she has often had a feeling of being peeked at, thinking it was just her own illusion. The feeling of being watched has come again. Su Ning tilted her head and suddenly curled her lips, disappearing into countless crowds. The person following her behind lost her trace, and for a moment, a pair of peach blossom eyes immediately searched around. "Hey!" Someone gently patted her shoulder. The voice is eerie and sweet. "Are you looking for me?" Mei Zizhou's figure stiffened, and as he turned his head with a strange expression, he saw the young girl who had just disappeared from his sight, appearing behind him at some point. She pushed the cart and gave him a gentle and cold smile. The gaze was filled with anger. "Shouldn't you give me an explanation for peeping at me?" Suning is very angry. She didn't expect that someone was really peeping at her. "Explanation is possible, but can we first find a secluded place?" Mei Zi didn't expect to be discovered for a long time, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, but then he smiled. Suning just looked at him coldly. She had already recognized this handsome man with peach blossom eyes, who was the man who stopped her on the road yesterday and wanted to strike up a conversation. Mei Zizhou followed her for a long time, either to strike up a conversation or to have other intentions. She doesn't care. And after what happened to the predator, she couldn't be alone with a stranger anymore, so she just said coldly. "I'm not interested, but you'd better not follow me anymore, otherwise you'll call the police." "Call the police? I'm afraid you dare not, right?" The man in front of her just curled his lips and smiled, with a strange expression on his face. Before she could react, he slowly bent down and approached her ear. "Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to hide the fact that you injured that man with your powers yesterday, would you?" Suning suddenly looked up. With a surprised and wary gaze, "You. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you because I am the same person as you, and I am also a superpower. If you are interested, you can come to apartment 605 in XX to find me, and I will be waiting for you there." The man's breath sprayed on Suning's neck. But there is no hint of ambiguity. Just let Suning's back rise with an indescribable chill. Until Maisie left for a long time, the chill on his back finally slowly dissipated. Suning slowly lifted her head, her gaze cold. Whether it's Mei Zizhou or the man from yesterday, they all have sufficient reasons to find themselves, but what she doesn't understand is. She has never told anyone about any supernatural abilities, nor has she ever shown them how did they discover her. 2:00 in the afternoon. XX apartment. A girl wearing a blue and white school uniform appeared at the entrance of the apartment. The red light camera aimed at her. She turned around and smiled slightly at the camera. Her beautiful and indifferent face appeared in the eyes of the man holding red wine behind the camera. Surprisingly, it did come. Looking at the girl's figure appearing on the screen, Maisie raised her eyebrows for a long time. He put on a self-proclaimed elegant smile and opened the door in advance. However, after a while, he saw a young girl slowly walking in. Suning's expression was still cold, but the girl's appearance diluted her indifference. She slowly sat down on the sofa, her eyes frozen like water, but a smile appeared on her face, even tilting her head slightly. "I'm curious, how did you discover that I'm a superpower?" This question. Suning has been curious for a long time. Because regardless of her appearance, dress, behavior, and demeanor, she is very suitable for an ordinary girl. Even if some of her behaviors have matured a bit and she cannot achieve the youthful innocence of a college student, she should not be suspected of being a superpower, should she? Or is it because of her hoarding behavior? Unexpectedly, Mei Zizhou was even more surprised than her. His handsome and charming face was taken aback for a moment, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. "Don't you know?" Faced with the astonishment on Suning's face, the strange feeling in his heart grew deeper and deeper. He frowned and said, "There is a mutual feeling between psychics. As soon as we meet, we can feel it. When I saw you, I knew you were a psychic. And you actually don't have any feelings for me. There is a peculiar sense of induction among the supernatural beings. It seems like a lonely alien, subconsciously searching for the same alien as oneself, and there is a peculiar attraction between them. As long as we meet, there will be a reaction. Suning regained consciousness and squinted her eyes. So it's like this. No wonder these two men can instantly know that she is a superpower, but why doesn't she have any feelings? She instinctively touched the necklace. Is it because the spatial ability is brought by the necklace, not by herself, that this situation arises? Suning didn't have time to think much, so Mei Zijiu continued, "Don't worry, although I am a superpower, I won't do anything to you. Not all superpowers will kill each other. The Zhao Lin who attacked yesterday is completely an outsider among the superpowers. He can kill other psychics and take away their abilities, so he has been causing trouble. For some reasons, he didn't dare to attack me, so he came to you. However, I am not a spatial psychic and couldn't help you at that time. I guess you should be a spatial ability." He spoke with a slightly heavy gaze. He saw with his own eyes that Zhao Lin had pulled Su Ning into the space. He thought she would die without a doubt, but he didn't expect the girl to come out, and Zhao Lin was not paying attention. Such a powerful ability. If we can cooperate with Suning. Thinking of this, he stared at Suning with some eagerness, his scorching gaze causing Suning's cheeks to sink slightly. She squinted her eyes. The appearance of the superpower stirred up Zhu Jianbao's heart, and a huge question lingered in her heart, neither expressing nor displeased. Do you know anything else besides superpowers? For example, the end of the world. If the superpower has already appeared, does it mean that the end of the world is also coming? The end of the world. Mei Zi was stunned for a long time. But soon, he became overjoyed, and his handsome and charming face also had a hint of laughter. Where did you hear this kind of thing? Online. There are indeed many such claims, but they are all sensational. How could they really exist? Speaking. He rubbed his forehead with a headache. He may still think highly of Suning, she is indeed strong, but she is still a simple college student after all. Surprisingly, I would simply believe those boring and hilarious rumors online. This way. It seems that you don't know anything either. That's it, it's worthless. I beg you, little cutie. I want to recommend tickets, monthly tickets, gifts. Only with a recommendation ticket can I have motivation, I cry to death. If there are more than 20 recommended tickets, I will add more. There is a monthly ticket that I will also add to it. I will also add more as a gift. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Chen Kaizhi smears her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Chen Kaizhi smears her. Suning tilted her head slightly, and a brilliant smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. A 20-year-old girl with long hair scattered around and a gentle smile on her face, most men will not raise any guard. Maisie breathed a sigh of relief for a long time. The next moment, he was horrified to find that the scene around him had changed. The originally normal apartment room disappeared and was replaced by a completely unfamiliar space, surrounded by white mist. Something's wrong. Mei Zijiu realized it. He stared at the cold gaze of the girl, instinctively wanting to run. A huge force of gravity pressed against him, causing him to fall to the ground, unable to move his whole body. He lay on the ground in a disheveled state. The originally calm face now turned pale, and the romantic peach blossom eyes were also filled with shock and fear. He murmured to himself, why are your abilities so similar to Zhao Lin, and this fog? Are you learning this skill from him? All of them are spatial abilities, it is indeed possible. But what he didn't understand was that he had a kind attitude from beginning to end. Why did Suning still use his powers to deal with him? Of course it's similar, because I took away his powers, and besides, I can't plunder him, I can also plunder yours. A smile appeared on Suning's face. In Mei Zijiu's horrified gaze, he stepped on his hand. Anyway, you don't know anything. It's useless to keep it and it's also a threat to me. Since that's the case, you go die. Mei Zijiu said, Dig a groove. His face was filled with shock, as if he had seen a monster in the eyes of the young girl. He thought about many possibilities for Su Ning to win over Zhao Lin, but he never expected that she would be a predator like Zhao Lin. Are predators so worthless these days? He wanted to step back, but he couldn't move at all. Cough cough cough, then, please calm down first. We don't have any grudges, why do you need to kill me? I don't like having a pair of eyes behind me forever. Su Ning smiled slightly. The gaze was incredibly cold, like winter snow, so cold that it made people tremble. Especially. You also know about my abilities, it would be better to let you die here than to let you go. You calm down. Before Mei Zijiu could finish his words, he felt waves of invisible force pressing heavily on him, almost making his eyes turn black. Su Ning grabbed his neck and absorbed all his powers onto himself. In the next moment, she felt her eyes brighten up, and even things 10 miles outside the window could be seen clearly. So you were peeping at me through this, no wonder I couldn't find anyone last night. It should be like 1,000 miles worth of sight. Although it's not very useful, it's better than nothing. Su Ning murmured to herself, then his gaze fell on the unconscious man on the ground. A fierce killing intent surged deep within. In the last 3 years of the apocalypse, she was no longer that simple girl. Anyone who could threaten her would die. She was about to get rid of the plum blossom when her silent phone suddenly rang. The voice of her school best friend Zhang Xiaoxiao sounded nervously, Su Ning, hurry up and watch the school forum. With the confession wall, that scumbag Chen Kaizhi is actually smearing you. Chen Kaizhi. Su Ning frowned. Since she retrieved the necklace, she has severed ties with Chen Kaizhi. Now, what does he want to do? She shook off the plum in her hand for a long time and quickly opened the forum, only to see the post at the top of the homepage. August 18th, my ex-girlfriend who licked the dog. In the post, Chen Kaizhi used his pen and ink to the fullest, describing his ex-girlfriend Su Ning with both emotion and emotion, how much she licked him. There are some things that he clearly doesn't like, but she wants to force him to accept them. As long as he looks at other women too much, she will get angry and argue with him, making him restless. Finally, Chen Kaizhi ended this post with a mournful and helpless tone, Su Ning, you are a very good girl and I really like you, but I really can't accept your unreasonable behavior. I have made so many changes and efforts for you, but none of them can change the huge gap between us. After leaving me, you can't find anyone better than me anymore. Su Ning grabbed her phone and a wave of anger surged in her heart. Invert black and white. This is her only idea. And her best friend Zhang Xiaoxiao has the same idea as her. She gritted her teeth and said indignantly, Chen Kaizhi, this scumbag, how you treated him in the past has been seen by everyone. Although I don't know why you broke up, if it weren't for him doing something you can't bear, with your personality, you would never have broken up. Now that I've read this post, he's just a complete scumbag. What is Su Ning forcing him to accept gifts he doesn't like? Did Su Ning force him to accept a computer worth thousands of yuan and a high-priced AJ? Saying oneself so innocent, like a fresh and refined white lotus, which thing wasn't he implying Su Ning to buy? Su Ning said calmly, I know now, I will handle this matter. She hung up the phone and opened the WeChat classmate group. At this moment. In the past, there were only a few messages in the student group, but today there are a total of 300 unread messages, and everyone is making a fuss, Li He. Have you heard about it? That post on the school forum. Chu Xiaoxiao. Ah, I see. Are you referring to the post by Su Ning and Chen Kaizhi? Li He. That's the post. Speaking of which, I have always felt that with Chen Kaizhi's appearance and grades, he shouldn't be with girls like Su Ning. I was a pity for him back then, but now I think about it, it's really a good score. Zhang Chen. With Su Ning's ugly appearance, I'm afraid no one will ever look after her in this lifetime, let alone a handsome guy like Chen Kaizhi. Chen Kaizhi. Everyone, stop talking. I am also very sad that such a thing has happened. Ning is currently emotionally unstable, and I hope everyone will not disturb her anymore. By Jiao Jiao. Yes, both you and Ning need to be okay. Smiling, the more Ning looked, the colder her eyes became. To be fair, Ning is not ugly. Although not as beautiful as a school flower, she can definitely be said to be a beautiful girl. However, she used to dislike dressing up and often had messy hair. Due to her family background, she never dared to look up at people, so her classmates only had an ordinary impression of her. Watching WeChat filled with sarcastic messages, she slowly closed her eyes. Then, a message was sent. Ning. At Zhangchen, how do you know that no one wants me? End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Aren't you the number one scumbag? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Aren't you the number one scumbag? There was a moment of silence in the WeChat group. Obviously, no one expected that Ning, who was mocked and criticized by them, would rudely retaliate. But at the next moment, countless messages were refreshed along with it. Zhang Chen. Don't you know what you look like? Do you need me to speak up? Chu Xiao Xiao. Do you really think that when you talk about a handsome guy, you have become more charming? There are many ugly photos of you here, do you want to take a look? Chen Kaizhi. Stop talking, Ning Zhang Chen. If you're not convinced, call your new boyfriend to come face to face with us. If your new boyfriend is better than Chen Kaizhi's classmate, I can call you grandma. Li He. How ruthless. Brother. Plus me, if she can really find someone better than Chen Kaizhi's classmate, I'll call her grandma too. New boyfriend. Everyone in the WeChat group knows everything. Where did Ning get her new boyfriend? Even if there is one, there can't be anything better than Chen Kaizhi, because besides Chen Kaizhi, who else would be blind to her? Ning clenched her phone tightly, her eyes cold. As the apocalypse approached, her original intention was to slowly teach Chen Kaizhi, a group of scumbags, a lesson after hoarding good goods. But now, she can't bear it anymore. Just as she was thinking about how to deal with it, Mei Zijiu on the ground suddenly snorted and rolled over. Looking at the man on the ground with a pale face and handsome features, Ning's lips suddenly curved into a smile. Finger fast typing. Ning. At Zhangchen, yes, tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock. See you and don't leave. I hope you have the courage to do what you said. I'm waiting to be your grandmother. After typing these few sentences, Ning put away her phone. Li He and Zhangchen guessed well, Ning really doesn't have a new boyfriend yet. But that doesn't mean she can't suddenly find a new boyfriend, who is countless times better than Chen Kaizhi to beat up these keyboard warriors who are now cursing and mocking her. Since you brought it to your door yourself, don't blame me for being impolite to you, Chen Kaizhi. Finding fault, right? Then she will come and puff up his face in front of all the classmates in the school. Thinking of this, Ning's gaze fell on the man on the ground. Even though his face was pale and drowsy, it did not diminish his handsomeness and elegance. His originally sparkling peach blossom eyes were now tightly closed, with a faint hint of fragility. She stepped forward and kicked a few times. Wake up. Since she had arranged to meet someone in the afternoon, Ning naturally wouldn't break her promise, but she lacked a suitable boyfriend. Ning is not ugly, but her interpersonal relationships are average. Coupled with Chen Kaizhi's post titled Touching, which actually smears the truth, she finds it difficult to find a better guy than Chen Kaizhi in a short period of time. This person can just solve her urgent need. Ning glanced at him again. It is undeniable that in terms of appearance, this man is definitely several times better than Chen Kaizhi. Mei Zijiu finally woke up leisurely. Having lost his superpower, his face turned a bit pale, and his romantic peach blossom eyes were also somewhat powerless. What else do you want to do? I no longer have any abilities, and I have no value or threat to you. Do you still want to kill them all? The statement of no regret or no regret is of no use in pursuing what has already happened. Maisie thought for a long time, but he still wanted to try and see if he could save his own little life. After all. At first glance, Su Ning is not a good person. Su Ning curled her lips and smiled lightly, her killing intent disappearing without a trace at this moment. I'll let you go, of course I can. As long as you help me with something, don't worry, it's not a troublesome matter. I just want you to pretend to be my boyfriend and cooperate with me to meet some people. There's no need to do anything else. Her cold words fell to the ground, and Mei Zijiu's face in front of her suddenly became somewhat strange. Let him be her boyfriend. He looked up and down at Su Ning with his peach blossom eyes, and a terrifying idea formed in his mind. On Junyi's charming face, a hint of fear couldn't help but appear. You're not interested in me, are you? He thought of his handsome and charming appearance, as well as Su Ning's inconsistent attitude. The more he thought about it, the more likely it was, and his voice was somewhat stumbling. I'll tell you, I won't sell my color scheme, even if you're strong, I absolutely can't sacrifice my innocence. Although he is weak, he still has dignity, okay? Even if Su Ning is strong and beautiful, he would never do such a self-deprecating thing. Get lost. The smile on Su Ning's lips disappeared, and she threw the pillow from her bed at Mei Zijiu. Sound, cold to the bone, shut up, I'm not interested in you. If you say one more word, I'll kill you right away. The vigorous killing intent on her body was like a sharp sword, causing Mei Zi, who was holding the pillow, to unconsciously retreat for a long time. If it's just a disguise, it's not impossible, but you always have to tell you what you need to do, otherwise I won't be able to cooperate with you. Feeling the killing intent on Su Ning's body, Mei Zijiu finally understood that Su Ning had no interest in him at all. Even just now, she really wanted to kill herself. But after falling into a coma, the girl who had a murderous heart for herself suddenly changed her mind. He has some confusion. Why is this? Su Ning didn't say a word, just opened his phone with fingerprints, opened the classmate group, and handed it to him. Mei Zijiu picked up his phone in confusion and his gaze fell on the news that his classmates were scrolling through the screen. Li He. At everyone, come and take a look. Su Ning keeps saying that she has found a better boyfriend than Chen Kaizhi. Wang Lin. Come on, who wouldn't know? Chen Kaizhi is a talented student at our Peking University. If it weren't for Su Ning's persistent struggles back then, how could he have been with Chen Kaizhi? Chen Kaizhi's classmate didn't want her anymore. She got angry and embarrassed, haha chu xiao xiao. At you, Su Ning, come on, didn't you say you have a new boyfriend? Bring it out for us to see. The WeChat group is bustling with enthusiasm, but it is full of satire and ridicule towards the young girl Su Ning, as well as attacks and ridicule. Mei Zijiu silently put down her phone. Su Ning said coldly, do you understand now? She doesn't need to read those WeChat messages and knows how those people in her classmate group mock her. Su Ning knew that although her interpersonal relationships were not good, her relationships with other classmates were not so bad. At most, it was that the water in the well did not invade the river. It must be that Chen Kaizhi did something secretly. She felt even more disgusted towards Chen Kaizhi in her heart, and she was determined not to easily let him go. Understood, you've met a scumbag and need a boyfriend to support you, so you thought of me. So this is why he survived from Su Ning's hands. He couldn't help but feel narcissistic and touch his face, feeling mixed with emotions for the handsome face he had grown. Stop talking nonsense, do you agree or not? Su Ning was too lazy to talk nonsense, her eyes filled with impatience, and she even pulled out her own space. No, 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 I promise. I hate scumbags the most in my life. It's unbearable. I will definitely help you with this favor, and I promise to do it well. I swear to the heavens that I will help you handle this matter, otherwise I will make 5 thunderbolts. That's how it is said. But Su Ning is not just a college student, how can he really believe what a person swears to say? However, her eyes were cold and her clothes were shining brightly. Then I also warn you, it's better not to play any tricks. You know, I don't want to kill now, so don't force me either. Before the end of the world, it was a rule of law society, and she knew very well that the red line could not be touched. So, this man should weigh it with her and not really force her to take action. As for after the end of the world, Su Ning's eyes were cold, but a huge killing intent appeared in her heart. Chen Kaizhi, you must die. I made an appointment with them at 5 p.m. Please tidy up now and we will be there soon. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon now. She glanced at the distance and realized that it would take about half an hour to get to her school from here. She was about to speak when she saw Mei Zijio's face change and she made a radiant call. Hello, young master, may I ask for any instructions? He seemed to be a different person, speaking in a very disdainful and arrogant tone, and uttering the words of Tianliang Wangpa, prepare a Lamborghini, a Bugatti, and 2 BMWs, and drive all the way to the entrance of the capital city. Follow my command. Su Ning. A question mark gradually appeared in her heart. Equally shocked was the butler across the phone, who was nearly 30 years old and calculating accounts. Young master, could you ask what you want to do? Mei Zijio held his head and chest high, full of vitality. Go slap the scumbag. I don't have time to tell you too much. Follow my instructions and I'll see a luxury car in an hour. Do you understand? He finished speaking and hung up the phone. The middle-aged man, who was far away, took off his glasses and looked dazed, almost suspecting whether he had heard the wrong thing. He knows every word, why can't he understand it when combined together? Face-slapping scumbag. He was puzzled and said, Young master, aren't you the #1 scumbag yourself? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Her Billion Award. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Her Billion Award. Hanging up the phone, Maisie breathed a sigh of relief, coughed lightly, and looked carefully at Su Ning with a pair of peach blossom eyes. Those people talk too much, and I can't bear to watch them. Just make some arrangements in advance. Shouldn't you mind? Su Ning gave him a cold glance before slowly retracting her gaze. I don't mind. She doesn't care about Mei Zijio's background, whether he is a wealthy second-generation playboy or not, and it has nothing to do with her. Anyway, as long as the people arrive. Su Ning took a taxi and took Mei Zijio to a nearby luxury goods store to purchase a set of clothes for him first. And she herself also entered the changing room. Before entering, her face sank like water and she said, Change your outfit first, don't embarrass me. Su Ning knew very well that anyone who could help Chen Kaizhi smear himself would not be a good person. To put it simply, people who follow the trend and step on high and hold low. Chen Kaizhi's family is poor, but she often carries her money and pretends to be wealthy. Her whole body is covered in famous brands, and although she has no money, she pretends to be a wealthy second-generation, creating a reputation. And just because she doesn't like to dress up and doesn't put in any effort on dressing, she is naturally considered a poor girl. Su Ning's lips curved into a cold smile. Those people believe that Chen Kaizhi is a second-generation wealthy person, so naturally they think it's her Su Ning who climbed the high branch. She doesn't mind, using strong enough financial resources to make those people's faces swollen. With a joyful heart, she changed into a suitable outfit for herself and then walked out. Mei Zijio had already changed his clothes, wearing a loose shirt with a few scattered buttons, just revealing his collarbone, which also enhanced his slender and handsome personality, with a carefree and charming temperament. He had regained his composure, lazily leaning against the wall, his peach blossom eyes devoid of emotional boredom. Isn't it okay yet? He murmured to himself and turned his head to see that Su Ning had already changed clothes and walked out at some point. In the bustling mall, people who were originally wearing ordinary clothes have somehow changed into a white dress and a black suit, and their hair tied behind their heads has also scattered down to their waists. Her hair was slightly curled, her eyebrows were cold and sharp, and her powerful aura diluted her gentle appearance. She seemed to have noticed his gaze, but turned her head and gave him a strange glance. "What, is there a problem with my outfit?" A smile appeared on his face, thinking to himself, how could there be no problem? Is it okay if the problem is too big? According to his current understanding of Suning, he is a student who has not yet graduated from university, but his aura is simply amazing. Even stronger than the old man in his family who has fought on the battlefield. She was dressed in a black suit, with curly hair standing in front of him coldly, and looked at him with that annoyed and indifferent gaze. It makes him I'm so heartbroken, okay. Maisie walked slowly over and handed Su Ning a lipstick while she was looking in the mirror. Let's get some makeup done. He used to be calm in the face of life and death crises, but now he is a bit hesitant. You don't want to go see scumbags with a plain face and haggard appearance, do you? Su Ning frowned. She looked at herself in the mirror. In just a few short days, she first experienced the impact of rebirth, apocalypse, and tragic death, then argued with Sheng Shufan and Chen Kaizhi, and even struggled on the train for a whole day. She did indeed look haggard. She didn't take Mei Zizhou's lipstick, but went to the nearby cosmetics store to get her makeup done. Just walked back. Her original haggardness has disappeared, and despite her light makeup, she still retains her original appearance, only becoming even more cool and outstanding. If there were other people walking around nearby, at least 8 out of 10 would turn around and look at Suning. She pointed to Mei Zizhou and herself, wrap the clothes on me and him, and all of these together. Then, she went to a nearby luxury goods store and packed some temporary luxury goods. She threw Rolex into Mei Zizhou's arms and said coldly to the salesperson. Wrap all of these up. Mei Zizhou's gaze, which had been staring at her, gradually blurred, suddenly became clear. No, I can do it myself. Suning lowered her head to look at the time, only sneered at the words, shut up, here you are, take it well. She sold the house and had around 4 million yuan in savings, making her very wealthy and not unable to afford these luxury goods. Of course, she would save as much as she could, spending most of the 4 million yuan on preparing supplies. However, Su Ning also understood that to teach Chen Kaizhi a lesson, she had to dress up herself and Mei Zizhou first. Isn't he fond of pretending to be a second-generation wealthy person, seeking help from those who follow the trend, and working together to smear himself? Suning paid the money and glanced coldly at Mei Zizhou, gesturing for him to follow him before continuing to sneer, then she let Chen Kaizhi and his little brothers see what real money is. Mei Zizhou followed out in a daze. He felt that he probably had some special fetish. Clearly, the man he despised the most was the one who ate soft food, and with his family background, he didn't actually need to rely on his face to eat soft food. But Suning treated him with such a dominant attitude, and when he spent money for him, a shameful heart stirred up in his heart. Done. Is there anything wrong with him? Until she got into the car, Mei Zizhou finally realized and frowned at Su Ning, saying, aren't you a college student? Spending so much money at once doesn't worry about your future life. He still remembers the first time he saw Suning. Wearing an ordinary floral dress, with long hair, stocking up in large quantities in the supermarket. Her attire, food, shelter, and transportation didn't look like a wealthy woman at all. During the days he was monitoring, she also lived in an ordinary rental house, with an incredibly simple life. Just for the sake of a scumbag, spending so much money, doesn't she feel a pain in the flesh? Suning's lips curved into a smile. So, I should also add some money to my bank account. As she spoke, she turned the Rolex watch she had just bought and said calmly. Master, go to the nearest lottery store. As the words fell, Mei Zizhou widened his eyes and looked at her in shock and strangeness. He was a bit amused. When you talk about adding some money, you don't necessarily mean buying lottery tickets, do you? This requires luck, and if you hold on to it, you'll only win a few thousand yuan. Can you still rely on this to make a profit? You know, just now, just buying those things, Suning spent over 1,000,000 yuan. He said, if you're short of money, here I am. Mei Zijiu was about to say that she couldn't find him enough when she saw her car parked at the entrance of a lottery store. Suning got off the car and walked into the lottery shop, his smile deepening at the corner of his mouth. Mei Zijiu would never have thought that Suning was reborn, and he would never have thought that the reborn Suning not only had memories of the future apocalypse, but also memories of lottery numbers. Suning remembers clearly that before the disasters of the apocalypse, she saw news about the $1 billion prize in the news. That winning number, she still remembers it now. This is also why she dares to spend so much money, because there is still a $1 billion prize waiting for her here. End of this chapter.